Beautiful. Thanks for reaching out to me. I think from all the stuff I sent you, I don't know if you had time to
But
go through all of it. It
it
was
was
a
a
lot of
lot of
stuff.
stuff, man.
I'm in a little bit of a manic creative place at the moment, the last few weeks. So it just all poured out of me. Maybe there's some things that you came across in all the material I sent you that inspires you about something you'd like to elaborate more on. And we could just start with you telling me some of your truths that come with the stuff.
Yeah, Till, first of all, from my side, also, I want to give thank you because during the last 2 years, I would say, since we create and we founded this no-profit foundation that nowadays Suma Kausai is a no-profit foundation based in Florida, USA. We are a community, and I can talk worldwide community that is our lineage of the work with medicine plants based on the ancient tradition of the Suma Kausai. And we can move all around the world from that culture. Communication is fundamental in the growth of community. I always like to say, no, for some reason, community and communication they have so much letters in common in that
Yeah.
world because are of the same mirror. And yeah, we have a lot of opportunities through our sacred ceremonies, through our great ceremonies of the event, like the Vision Quest, the Sundance, in which we shared with the community. Nowadays, using the technology in our hand, we have much more opportunities to create space for communication in the same community. That's why, for example, with my wife, we started a group of work called Sacred Circle Coaching, in which people that have been part of our ceremony, so other ceremony as well, now we open to everybody, can have another space in which deepening in the insight of the circus ceremony, in also integrating work and adding more systematic work based on psychotherapies. I'm psychologist, also my background is psychologist, and
Mhm.
we really love and we train in internal family system. Again, is another space for increasing the communication between community people and within ourselves. So when I saw you being part of the mighty network Suma Kausai community, and actually people were not so much interacting still in that community, and I saw that you post your background, what you like to do in your life. I was really super happy, and this is what I really want to thank you because
Okay.
is that this is why we create this community. This is the reason why we create this
Mhm.
community because we can accelerate the process of knowing each other, of knowing each other, of be a bit closer. Because I didn't know about you, but you are part of my community. Didn't know
Yes.
even me yet, even if maybe you heard about me. But in that moment, a spark of light started, and both we've been attracted. So I'm super happy for that. And again, thank you for that because that Suma Kausai community network is that for this reason. Because I believe that into the community, even us, there is a hierarchy, and hierarchy is needed. Hierarchy is functional when the leaders of the community, like the leader of the companies, leader are healthy, when there is no toxicity into the leadership, the
Mhm.
hierarchy is really helpful and actually is catalyzing process of growth for everybody.
That's a really interesting aspect that I was also going to get to with my questions in terms of where the dependence on having this kind of structure can sometimes lead people to this spiritual materialism where it's all, oh, I went to 10 ceremonies, you only went to 5, now I know better. And then people are gauging each other on these outside thing, got the nicest dress and who brings the most instruments and things like that. So I think it's interesting to make that separation between why hierarchy is important to keep things together and why you don't want to put too much emphasis on it, because then you get this cult like situation where people don't dare to question the people that are leading. And I think that's important, but maybe you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Personally, I always felt that it's a really wide argument. Personally, I felt that it's always balance of energies. Nature, it's this is something that also the elders told us, that there is always there are polarities in nature, but is not a law of duality. I would say more it's a law of triality. I would say of the energy of three elements in which there are two elements in opposition and always an energy that is neutralizing this contraction. This could be apparently a contrast. I really love the applying this concept into movement in body. I love the part also in being connection with our body, who is working in this functional movement. There is this concept of tensegrity. So tensegrity is where the pressure that we have from atmosphere is making a pressure, is stressing our body in some way, but that pressure is allowing our body to develop the resistance in which there is a natural balance from above and below, creating this tension, and there is movement that is neutralizing this energy of movement, neutralizing these two polarities. So again, it's not bad or good, is what it is an energy in balance. So when I'm talking hierarchy, I'm talking about one polarity and another polarity. It's not even democracy. That better don't enter in this topic today after US election. About democracy is not about what really we are proposing in our lineage. We are proposing that human growth, what it could mean, human growth beyond health, be healthy, living in peace within ourselves and with others. I think that two things cannot come alone. But growth is really to know ourselves, to develop the capacity to discover our real talents, what we are meant to do in our life. Our leaders are there naturally. They didn't put we I didn't put myself there, because one day I did 4 years of university degree, then I did my master and the university gave me the title of psychologist.
Mhm.
I'm there because I did my personal work, of course, first of all, and then I start to listen some sign around me or things that were happening that start to put my attention and my focus in that direction. And then in some moment that I had all a tribe with me, putting me there. So this is synchronicity of many different events that create that center of attention in the topic that put us in being a medicine man, a leader of our family, because we have a community that we are leading. I'm
Mhm.
not. This is the proportion. No, this is the balance. What I was talking about energy. This is the leadership. I would say, and I came to this topic because often the communication, like when we are in ceremony, the leader of the ceremony is the one that is communicating mostly, is sharing, etc., etc. Now, also in daily life, we recognize that everybody is in a path of never-ending learning. We are all learning all the time. That's why even the leader are the ones they drink the first cup together with all the participants, because we are in that horizontal position of being in front of the fire, in front of the altars, and learning from ancient spirit like the plants and our altars. But nowadays, for enriching the community, I really feel that is needed also this possibility of horizontal communication, of horizontal, not only vertical, but also horizontal, in which we create the cross and meet in the center between horizontal and vertical, in which also the community can propose their interests, their talents, their vision, and together we can create a bigger vision. Even if I can be the elder of the elders, who is there, the elder of the elder, I'm sure that if he's a real elder, he know that he's possessing his own perspective, and it will be just part of the wholeness, even with all the experience that they can have. I really hope that what we are starting to creating today is this possibility of enriching from different perspective, because this is what our community, our network community is meant to be. That's why I'm really happy that you follow this call, you felt this call, and you answer. No, I like to do this, and this can have a ripple effect in which all the community can be enriched by this interaction of the members with the leader.
Yeah, any podcast, no matter what the subject, lives off of people interacting with it. When you get started, it can be very difficult when you're basically just talking to the void. You put the first few episodes out there, and you don't know who's listening. You see these little numbers, and there's 10 people downloaded it and 20, but you don't get any feedback. When you approached me about this, I was like, here's somebody who really has something to say that I'm very interested in hearing and spreading out, and it can reach out into other areas. People from other groupings that are also in the medicine might be interested to hear it. It's not just about the people who are already following Sumakasai, but maybe also some people who are into Santo Daime or into the Lakota tradition up here in the north will be interested to also see how you guys are doing it. One thing that's really interesting to me too is you say it's only 2 years since you guys founded the church down in Florida. And you mentioned that you're only starting to get comfortable to talk about these things, which I completely understand, since we're a little bit in murky waters about where these things are going to be going. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit about how that came together. Was it a spontaneous decision that you guys said, okay, now's the time? Did you guys prepare for a long time, wait for the right moment? And what's involved with starting a church for plant medicines? That's also something that I think me and whoever is going to be listening might be very interested to find out.
Yeah, I mean, we belong to a lineage in which I would say that we never hide any conversation on these topics, or unless to just to talk to certain people more than others. We belong from of a culture that has been there for thousands of years. It suffered historical things that many other tribes and community and culture have suffered everywhere in the world, for misunderstanding or differences of in the way how some culture they contact between each other, here in Europe, like in South America. But again, it survived, has been always there for thousands of years, and so we can count on this oral inheritance from family. It can be blood family or spiritual family. I have my heritage with my godfather that he has with his grandpa and godfathers, etc., etc., etc. So back to the times. And honestly, our ceremonies has been always open, and everything that I can share here with you and in any podcast is not so far. I would say is even the same that I can share into in the part of the things that we talk during the ceremony itself. In that place, we call prayers, of course. Here we can call podcast or just
Yeah.
that. But again, it's a way of life. It's what we are talking about. It's a way of life, and praying, it's something that is teaching us into the ceremony how to pray in our life, but not only when we are with others interact. To learn our prayers, it's be able also to pray with our thoughts in our daily life, to pray with our feelings in our daily life, to pray with our movement, with our action in our daily life. So the culture of Summa Causai is not something regarded only the ceremony itself. Summa Causai, it's a way of life. Summa Causai is a structure of uh, laws, ceremonies, and belief and values, all of them together in different proportion, that want to support a way of life that can create well-being, can spread
Mhm.
health and peace inside of the people that are practicing that habits, and outside, of course. So Summa Causa is talking about habits that we have in our life, and this is what we can share. They are totally open. I personally started 20 years ago with my godfather. That has been when I met the first time my godfather in this path, Santiago, and we dedicate 5 6 years together, really close by, traveling in Europe especially, and planted this dream because I'm originally from there. So I supported him planting this dream in Europe, and it grow. The seed has been planted. Nowadays we are also harvesting those seeds that we planted during these years in which we start. It brought us to having a big community in Europe, also a big community in US, to having a Vision Quest in Italy, Vision Quest in Ecuador, also the Sundance in Ecuador. So the family project and the community project grow, have grown. My godfather loved to talk about this tradition, painting and writing books. He wrote several books. He painted a lot of paints about these spiritual arts and sacred art of painting, about the vision, and even his understanding about the Summa Causai and the culture. Myself, I felt that podcast now it's the first step. That's why I started 2 years ago also recording with people that are interested about that. There is no exactly a why we started now. I think it's really organic, something that is fermenting, and in some moment is appearing spontaneously. Like our encounter is like demonstration of that. There is attention. Oh, when where focus go, attentions flow. So it's the energy we put there, it blossom. It's something really organic that is part of all the natural event in nature. So there is not a reason. It's not because in the past we didn't want to talk about that. It happened that 2 years ago, after creating a net of relation of several years in the United States, a lawyer friend of us told about this possibility because the churches in the United States, first of all, are no profit foundation, so 501c3 legally. I would say the governmental box, institutional box is the no profit foundation. Then we declare that this no profit foundation is a religious institution that can take advantage of the religious act freedom, in which people that believe that they have their belief and they have sacraments, that some substance included into the sacrament of the church can be into the schedule. This is our case because we are a church in which we want to protect the sacred and traditional use of tobacco that is not scheduled because it's not considered a drug, and San Pedro Cactus, Awakoya, that the plant itself is not illegal. In the same time, the plant contains an alkaloid that is mescaline that is included into the Schedule 1 of the list of the drug of the United States. This brought us to a consideration that the time is really mature to start a real conversation with the government and institution, in which in the United States there are two main situations. The one is the IRS, and we already agree, so we have IRS approval. We are officially 50 CO3, so with all the paper. The other one is the dialogue with the DIA to be approved in the use of a plant that contain a substance that is considered illegal in the United States. We started a process that actually brought us to be part of a big federation. Sumakkausai Church is also part of the Sacred Plant Alliance, a federation of churches working with sacred plants and substances through the support of the Religious Act Freedom and also part of a bigger foundation. We all are aligned in a use of certain ethical code, a use of certain practices, in use of social media communication, etc., 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 that we are more aligned in the way that we hope we can go to the US government that is regulating use of drug and substances, the IA and also FDA, hopefully in one day to be recognized as expert in use of that plant with all the rights and be protected, especially in the traditional ancient use of those substances. That in my side is my expertise, is my focus, is my attention. I don't want to even enter in discussion about other substances, modern substances, where I respect everything that can be done with love, with good criterias and good values. I respect the medical use of LSD, MDMA, CBS, all this part, but it's not my field. My field is I cannot talk for them because I just know a part about that. What I'm talking about is to respect men and women that are working with sacred plants that are coming from indigenous ancient tradition. Like in our case, the use of Wakoya cactus around the sacred altar of the Chacana. And this is not only something for human, for the medicine people. We call ourselves Kurakas or Yachai. Also for the plant itself, sustainability of the plant. For example, the cactus we work through and we honor is a cactus that is growing also in the United States. So having the possibility of awakening the local memory that is coming from the plants that are growing in this way is also working on the sustainability of the plant that we are using. For example, I know that with peyote cactus sacred plant, there are a lot of risks nowadays in the use of peyote because the industry, the acceleration of the process, the increasing of the demand of peyote ceremony. I know nowadays there is even interested of the narco traffic in Mexico that is stopped people harvesting peyote into the desert. So there are many things involved nowadays. And I'm sure that as has always been the foundation of the health for the communities that were practicing that use, I'm sure that we can, with the correct attention, take that model and apply to other communities all around the world. And this is what we are doing. With awareness seed from America, and we are planting a seed in Europe, something different we will blossom from that seed because the ground where it's planted, the influence of the stars, the sun, and the moon will be different. So there will be outer factors that will create a different experience itself. And we are already proving that actually. Again, we have done in Europe this work for 20 years, and there are different nuances with the communities, even in South America, where originally is coming from.
That gets me to the shamanic tradition in Sicily, because I actually was reintroduced to the plant medicines through a good friend that grew up in Sardinia. And in one ceremony, things weren't going so well. He suddenly burst into a Sardinian shepherd song. And it carried so much deepness and such a heartfelt thing that was coming from like a space. Really, I could feel the land. Sicily and Sardinia are somewhat similar, not just in the local area where they're placed, but probably the history of the two places are somewhat similar in that there are islands outside of the big Roman Empire where people went their own ways a little bit. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about that, if there's a tradition that connects you to the historical place of your origin and how you connect. I know your family connects you to the medicine part of your journey, as in you were talking about your grandfather and your grandmother in the other podcast that I was listening to. But how much of a shamanic history can be found in these places in Europe that you can still feel nowadays, besides the connection to the land, of
Yeah.
course?
It's super interesting question to be explored, because actually there is not a live memory of that, even in terms of blood, family, and relation. I think if there will be, as I'm sure there was, this kind of knowledge also in Europe, in some way has been transformed. I don't like to say interrupt, has been just transformed in something else that is not so easy to be recognized as is easy to recognize in North America with the people of the North, Lakota people, and so on, and the Quichua people from the Andes Mountain, all the people from the jungle in Ecuador, we have Shuar, etc. So in that context, it's really easy to recognize because it's still there. I almost it didn't change during thousands and thousands of years. Instead, in Europe, the concentration of people, the concentration of different cultures, did deep transformation in 2000 years. What happened in the Mediterranean Sea in terms of contrast between culture, encounter of different cultures from Sumeris, Egyptian, Greece, Roman, has been so fast, and Sicily has been the center of the Mediterranean Sea in all these fast, crazy encounters of different cultures, in which recognize that kind of tradition with that expectation that we have of being a shaman with feather, tobacco, and prayer. I would say we cannot find nowadays in that way. I really appreciate the elders of my lineage that I always say this knowledge do not belong to human. This knowledge belong to earth. This knowledge we are talking about shamanism. That again, we say shamaning. I actually is not my favorite word, because shaman it's something that can be really geolocalized into Siberia and Russia. Here we are
Mhm.
talking in South America, curanderismo, wishasha. It's different nuances. But I would say, if we agree in a new age perspective that shaman, we are talking about people with deep connection with the nature. There are shaman everywhere. So first
Mhm.
of all, when we are talking about shaman tradition, we should understand and agree with shaman tradition, because again, if we are expecting people with big sombrero full of feathers and with some herbs and things calling the spirit from ancient tradition in the Mediterranean Sea, I don't know about that kind of lineage. But if we agree that there is interest into really knowing people that family by family they cultivate a deep relation with the nature, with their land, with their own homeland, etc., I would say that yeah, there are shaman everywhere. The closest, in my investigation, the closest shaman tradition that I saw, I heard close to us is in Algeria, North Africa. In the cave of Algeria, there are some painting in the stone of medicine full, with head full of mushroom, and that's ancient painting. They are dated around 11,000 years ago.
Wow. About the same time that I just heard that they found a altar in the Andes that is dated for 10,000 years, complete with all the trimmings that go with it. So that's a
I
very
mean,
interesting point.
I like to say, Till, we know that botanically all the cactus are originally from America continent. That in some moment after the Pangea, all continents they create their own continent on the earth as we know nowadays, and all the cactus were growing in South America for some reason. So I like to say, this is what all I like to say. Maybe we don't have in our blood lineage any ancestor that's European, no? We don't have some ancestor that had cactus, sacred cactus in their life. Maybe we don't have any ancestor in our lineage that had ayahuasca in meeting in their life. But I'm pretty sure that all we have an ancestor that had a relation with mushroom in their life. Because it's the medicine that is everywhere in the planet, no distinction of continent. Mushrooms are growing everywhere. It's another realm, different from plants, from animal, from minerals. So it's a special realm that is everywhere and is the foundation of life into the earth. So that we all have some encounter in our ancestral lineage with plants that can provoke expansion of consciousness, growing of consciousness and awareness. I'm sure that all we have, and maybe this is mushroom. I really do love the cactus San Pedro, and I really felt in love since the first time I met in South America. Also because nowadays we are coming the south of Italy, Sicily itself, and the whole Mediterranean Sea. The cactus they grow really well, so I'm really happy to cultivate my own medicine, and in this way, awakening and calling and singing to the memory of our land back. Again, I really love my elders because they have been super kind with us, people coming from Europe, when we have been there and say, let's go to your country, but not because we want to impose any culture to you, because this is an old history that we don't want to repeat. We are coming to your country to help you wake up again your people, to wake up again your memory, the memory of your land, of your house.
Hmm.
So this has been really beautiful. It's beautiful nowadays in which we are starting now in these years to harvest this prayer and start to awakening also the memory of our land that is coming through stories, through songs in our native language that can be Sicilian, can be Sardinia. It's funny what you told me because we start our Vision Quest in Sardinia. So yeah, we are really connected also with the
Oh, wow.
island of Sardinia. We did 6 years in Sardinia of Vision Quest, and then last year has been the seventh in Sicily. So last year actually we celebrate 13 years of vision quest in Italy.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment, and it's wonderful that it's starting to turn into a tradition. I'm really happy to hear that too. I haven't been to Sicily, but I went to Sardinia once. It's a while ago, I think 2006 or something, almost 20 years ago. The nature there is unforgiving when the sun burns down on you, but also the mountains and the sea have this dynamic that is unusual for somebody like me from the flatlands of Germany, where all the trees have been cut down to build ships. And I guess that's a bad comparison because that happened around Sicily and Sardinia too. But there's less of this powerful nature there that really makes you feel somewhat small, but at the same time, really expansive. I wanted to ask you more about Andrea and Santiago and what is the significance of having a man and a woman lead a ceremony as opposed to just having one person that is running the thing by themselves. What are the implications of bringing the family for the people in such a form as opposed to going to a ceremony in Colombia where you'll just have one person that's more of a priestly type person running the thing by themselves. In some ayahuasca ceremonies, I had that experience that it will just be one leader of the ceremony and they don't pay special attention to share the responsibility.
Mm, I see. And for us, it comes from a natural observation and something really easy to recognize that we all come from a father and a mother. We all come from a father and a mother. It's been for our parents. And so the foundation of a house, of a family, is a father and a mother, and then all the children. We're not talking about how people they want to live the love and what they understand about love in their life and how they want to live their life in relation with who and how to create their own family. We are just talking about something has been always there and is natural. So to build a house, we need two columns minimum. To build a big house, we need 4, 6. There are the grandparents, the parents, etc. So this is our relation with mother, with having a couple. If it's not a couple and a man and a woman leading our main altars, I would say, especially the big one. Even the ceremony itself is what I do myself most of the time. That there is my wife with me, and if she's not with me, there is always a sister that is supporting, bringing this female energy, and that's it. We go back to the beginning of our call, no? This contrast of polarity between men and woman again is not a polarization, is not bad or good, is not even a duality because between that two people, the two energy, there is this neutral energy that is love. In case of
Mhm.
if I'm working with my wife, of course there is also that kind of love of a couple and partner. But if I'm working with the sister, there is that love of brotherhood, sisterhood, friendship, respect, etc., that are other great manifestation of love. So is needed because we say our altars are held by that natural contrast of energy, polarity of energy. That again is not just the two energy itself, but also all the contrast, the energy of the fire, the altar. The same altar, also our altars are spreading all the time this concept and this understanding. The fire and the candles that we can put in the center of our altar is our Father, is not representing our Father, is our male energy. Our altar, our chakana, our half moon is our mother. bringing the energy, live, real, one there, like the fire, earth together, and they are linked, connected in that relation of the two energies that together can create life. So what we are bringing, we are a piece of earth with fire, air, and water that together can create that energy of creation of life. So this is one of the main reason why men and women we are working together in our altars. Is that
Hmm.
specific, that recognize and accepting again that wherever how it can be the different expression of love, who is creating energy, who is creating life, is that the relation between men and women. Men and women, we are then in this exploration of relation between men and women in the work in the altar is possible, of course, deepening a lot that the ancient ceremony coming from our relative up, especially up in the north, in the tobacco ceremony, in which there is this special time in which we honor also the food and the sacred food into our ceremony. We the prayer that I always listen to from my elders, that even there is a hierarchy, and again not because who is first is better, who is in the top is better, who is in the bottom, or vice versa. It's just what it is, in which the elders say that the women are the head of the family, the man is the heart of the family, and in the belly there are all the children.
That's beautiful.
And again, this is the kind of relation that we are cultivating and deepening and understanding in our life.
Oh, yes, you need to have this going on, that's for sure. I'm sure we can work that in at some point. Talking about family, that's a good segue to one of the things that I was really interested in exploring with you. When I first started working with ayahuasca, I came out of a few years of messing around with harder drugs. And when my friend brought me to my first ceremony, I had just quit messing around with heroin here in the city. He was basically like, you stop, but if you want to really stop, then come with me next weekend and you might never be going back to that. And it's been 6 years and I've never been going back to that. The medicines are definitely something that I heartily recommend for anybody who is struggling with alcohol or substance abuse, as in really closing the door behind you on that call, because we all know that alcohol and these other substances have a call that sometimes doesn't leave people alone for the rest of their lives. After the first ceremony, I was very excited about having experienced this exuberance again. I hadn't experienced that for a long time because essentially, when you're a drug addict, you're just maintaining. Maybe you feel the exuberance for the first half year or a year, but once you get into 2 or 3 years of a regular handshake with the devil, you don't get to have the nice experience anymore, especially if you're trying to be moderate about it. I was fairly moderate about it, but it still had a pretty strong grip over me. After going into my first ceremony, I did some research because I was a little bit worried that I was just going to replace one substance with another. I went on Google and asked if ayahuasca is addictive. And what I found was that several places were stating that no, you don't have to worry about any physical addiction or mental dependency. What could happen is that people get quote unquote addicted to the community, where they can't live without that feeling of having the family, and they keep coming back. They feel called, they feel drawn, they can't live without it. I started to develop a fairly critical stance towards all the groups that I was joining, and basically skipping around, going here a couple times and going there a couple times, and always keeping a distance to stepping into that hierarchy, as you're saying, out of a fear of, yes, my main psychological problems, I think, stem from wanting to connect with my family and being somewhat rejected, somewhat rejecting the family. And, I guess that's something that feeds each other. As a psychologist, you can maybe elaborate a little bit on that if it fits in here right now. On one hand, I really appreciate that you're trying to create that community, trying to draw people in so they can work on their personal voyage, book the flight, and go. How do you feel about that aspect of the journey where people get drawn to, yeah, needing this interchange with a group of people that feels like family, but then in a way, if the sacrament wasn't there, probably would dissipate pretty quickly too. One experience I had with one group that I was drinking Wachuma was they had a WhatsApp group. They would always do a group call a few days after the ceremony to find out what people were experiencing. So they were concerned about aftercare, as you're saying, what you're doing with your wife. On the other hand, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. If anybody from that group is listening, I love you all. I felt like it was a little bit shallow where somebody posted a picture of themselves stuck in traffic, and there was a little bit of an orange lining on the horizon behind all the cars, and they're like, oh, such a beautiful day. And I look at the WhatsApp group and I'm like, what am I doing here? This person is stuck in traffic, and yes, they just drank last weekend, but I didn't. And I'm like, I can't get anything out of this right now. So I would overcome this dichotomy for myself where I want to belong to a group. I want to be somebody who can step in and help the people that just arrived and make them feel comfortable about joining a group. But I also have something keeping me back from being like, you still have to do the work yourself. And I can't push you too hard to rely on the group or on the sacrament because you need to do the work. You need to find out where your voyage is going. And like I said before, book the ticket and show up at the airport when it's time. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit of what goes through your head when somebody approaches you like that.
Yeah. Still, thank. I think to really answer to this question, maybe we could stop the recording and starting an IFS session together. Because what you are mentioning here, it's what we used to call a polarization that you feel. There are some parts of you that really feel attracted by the idea of having a community to share all these activities and way of life, and in the same time there is another part of you that is not so clear, have some judgment about this way of life in community that can hide some addiction, and just switching an addiction to other addiction and things like that are totally valid, both point of view on the same phenomena that is having community. And it's something that is really talking about your personal experience and also your life. And again, thanks for opening and sharing with me and with everybody listening about your life and this part of your life where you were struggling with drugs. To give a part of the answer to your question, no? Great part of the work that we are proposing is related with addiction. It's absolutely related with addiction, because beyond the addiction with substances, I would say everybody has some addiction to something in our life. Can be with relationship, can be with food, that again is relationship, with plant, uh, everything that can create a part of us that had been activated. Plants are the sacred path, the path that I love, because they are great master and teacher in having this capacity to open a gate into ourselves and facing who is there and why is there. knowing that being in us that have addictive behavior in their life, not only facing them with the sacred altars, with the ritual, with the community. All of them are parts of something. It's not only the community, it's not only the altar, it's not only the ritual. All of them together are giving an infusion, an injection of safety, an injection of care, an injection of love to all those being in us, those parts of us that have addictive behavior and needs this. This is what everybody needs. It's love, it's care, it's attention, it's space, it's time. I cannot tell about your experience because I can be witness with you that is possible because you testify that it's possible having this kind of healing during the ceremony. But then, what is addiction? The opposite of addiction is connection. So, it is a disconnection from our own nature. Addiction is because we are not able to be connected with ourselves. So when there are on true love, true connection between community, family, etc., etc., we are not talking about addiction. If we feel that we need to stay with that community to feel love, this is not addiction. This is what the human we are meant to be, social being, that we need community to be good, to improve, not also to be good, to grow, because we need some people that can be a mirror for us. Because there are things that we can do only alone, individually. No one is going to do for ourselves. And there are things that we can resolve and grow in couple, having partner. We cannot do alone. And there are things that we can resolve and grow in community.
There's another aspect on there that maybe as an ex-addict, the problem with those substances is that once your body gets used to it, you always need to raise the dosage. And then at some point, you might be in the unfortunate situation that the person that provides you with the substance realizes how much you need it and they'll raise the price. I know that you, with your particular group, are doing the Sundance, the Vision Quest ceremonies, and I know it's not expensive. It's basically open to anybody. I haven't been to a Vision Quest, but I know that I wouldn't feel like I'm getting taken to the bank. There is some other groups, especially up here, where year by year it gets more expensive to go to these ceremonies and they will prop them full of more people. In that respect, it sometimes can feel like the whole family thing just part of the veneer to make people throw their money into the pot, which usually goes to a good place. The people who grow the medicine, who take care of the forest, everybody has to see something. It's not like everybody can work for free. But there is a little bit of this dynamic where when you go into a ceremony, you're always wondering, are they doing this out of love or are they into it for the money? I've seen a good handful of different groups, and you seem to be the right person to be asking this. Where should a person be careful about when they start calling a group of people their family? I'm completely convinced that I'd love to be part of the aftercare program you're doing, because after talking to you for an hour, knowing that you're a psychologist, I know it comes from a place where you really want to make sure that people are ready to step out into life and then come back and join the community whenever they feel called. You definitely don't strike me as somebody who's trying to get more and more people to be there every week and drop like $300 on you. So I feel that you're the right person to ask, as where's the line between the hucksters and the church? Is there a place where one should make that distinction, or is it that, well, the medicine is doing the healing, the person is doing the healing, the environment really only matters to a certain degree as long as all the elements are present. That's something that I'm really interested
Ah,
in. One tiny little example was I went to Colombia at some point, and we went all the way into the mountains to indigenous community where the shaman of the person that was leading the 1 week workshop at his compound outside Medellin, the shaman lived up there in this community. And when we arrived, I saw that he had a stack of aguardiente bottles behind his house. He was basically an alcoholic. And when we had the ceremony, the people from the village showed up, but they gave him a hard time the whole night why he brought us there. And the whole ceremony turned into a little bit of a, I could feel there was something wrong. You're under the medicine, so you're not going to be like, hey, what's going on here? And then I heard about that later on. He was a good guy. I really liked him, but he had an alcohol problem and he wasn't in sync with his village. The village was basically like, what are you doing? We want to do our ceremony without these guys here. So that just popped to my mind. I was thinking more about people up here in the
yeah.
north that are like, oh yeah, I've been sitting and doing medicine for 2 years. Now I'm ready to serve myself. And then they're starting their mailing list and filling the room with
I
people.
can super valuable this question actually. Thanks, but I would say there is this topic for me, and is a really large topic. Is about education. This everything about this topic is education, in which basic law of the market. Once we are operating through currency, we are entering the marketplace. There is demand and there is offer. The who is offering, of course, we hope is serious people offering the best product, etc., etc. Who is demanding as his own responsibility. Going to a ceremony, it's something super serious. If you are going to a doctor for surgery, I don't think you are going, oh, I need a surgery. I found this on Instagram. I'm going to this guy because nice picture and I'm going to a surgery. No, man, I'm going
Yes,
to ask
yes.
where it study, where it's come from. I'm going to check for a lot of feedback from people. Going to a medicine ceremony, it's something can be really affect your mental health and your holistic health. So you don't have only the right, you have the obligation as participant to wondering where you are going, and not if you found on Instagram. Okay, we are not us, because we are not going to do this kind of stuff on Instagram. But wherever you have found, you have the obligation to really check. And there are a lot of signs that can talk about the serious and respectful work that someone is doing. If you're not doing that, you're not educated. You're ignorant. Allow me the term in the real. You don't know what you're doing. Ignorant in that sense. No, you are really don't know what you're doing. So you are in the hand of the casualty of the chaos. Whatever can happen. I'm sorry for that. I can wish you good luck. That responsibility is fundamental. As I'm 100% responsible of my work, of what I'm serving, and the seriousness how I'm doing my job, who is receiving also has his own responsibility. So all that, saying all that, I would say there is a range nowadays of prices. If someone is doing, I'm talking someone serious, I don't know, if he's doing in the super high resort 1 week of meeting with preparation, follow integration, follow up, eating sushi and pizza every day and drinking kombucha, and they are asking 2000 per person, I can understand. You are going to a super luxury setting. I know that have an upscale range. If I'm going to a Saturday place in a humble piece of land, private house, and I'm asking the same, something could start to not be really fair. There is something that is not fair. I don't want to put a price right now on the service, but I think that there is a range that can justify what they are asking for in order also what people are offered. If we are going to a ceremony where you know that in that kind of ceremony, how that people like to work, they are calling an orchestra of 50 people singing an orchestra in a ceremony, and you have to pay each one of them. So I think, again, is a balance. I will tell you why. In our lineage, I'm not living in US, and maybe I'm serving in US. In the day in which I'm going there, I trust in my organizer that are the ones in my relative there that are the ones closer to the community more than me that know personally, almost personally, each one. And if my sister come to me and say, Dario, there is this guy that really need in this moment of his life, but he cannot do that. The door is open. We never close the door. If you are organized to me a ceremony in New York and you tell me once the minimum requirement of things are settled, and you say, I know this guy, I know how he's living his life, I know what he's doing his life, and I know that this will be really helpful because he's looking for, he needed it. He told me that he needed, and today he cannot afford the the whole economical aspect are saying okay, which is the minimum because there is some also a minimum effort in that sense that is needed to push people also. But the door has been always open. And personally, part of my dream, having a no-profit foundation and a church, that we can grow in some way in which we can even have outer support, donation, etc., from bigger group or private, in which we can guarantee that the minimum requirement that are needed to realize a ceremony, in which can be open also the space for people that really cannot afford that investment in their life in that moment, and we can open the doors for everybody as a church is meant to be.
That would be
Yeah.
wonderful. We'll have to do another session, Dario. There are so many
Yeah, right now
questions,
in 8 minutes,
and
we have,
I
in
know you
eight
have to
minutes, I
go.
have my Sacred Circle coaching with my wife about
Yes,
Medicine Path and IFS, this community group that we have. Let's set another date and we can keep going.
wonderful. You can drop the Mighty Network information on whatever clips I'm going to put out if you want to start inviting people on the network right away so they can start a conversation themselves.
We can have a tour on Mighty Network. I think you understand how Mighty Network works, but we can talk about that more. So we can interact.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Nice to
All
meet
right.
you,
Well,
Tim.
sounds great
Very nice
sharing your
feeders.
knowledge. Okay, ciao.